Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Chris Boardman. We warmly welcome the attendees of the Royal Australian Navy Warrant Officer Leadership Management course who are joining us for this evening's ceremony. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching this ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lance Corporal George Campbell Davies. George Davies was born in Adelaide on the 27th of November 1895 to Harold and Ina Davies. His father was the first person in Australia to be awarded a doctorate in music and went on to conduct extensive research into Indigenous music. He was the first conductor of the South Australian Orchestra and eventually became the Elder Professor of Music at the University of Adelaide. George was described as a sunny, happy little fellow who had the power to create a cheery atmosphere wherever he went. He was educated at Prince Alfred College, where he was successful both academically and as a sportsman. He was a prefect, captain of the sports team for 3 consecutive years, the winner of the College Cup, a champion gymnast, and a member of the football team. He belonged to the Students' Christian Union, and it was said that his religious feeling was so manifestly a part of his nature that all suggestions of insincerity died on the lips before it could be uttered with reference to him. After finishing his education, George became a teacher at Prince Alfred College, and it was later said that his frank and manly bearing enabled him to establish himself at once as a teacher of great promise. George Davies began teaching at the beginning of 1915, but in May, after 1 semester, enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force at the age of 19. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service overseas with the 8th Field Ambulance in November of 1915. He was first sent to Egypt, where he served for some time with the troops guarding the Suez Canal. Private George Davies was interested in the local people wherever he went, and his open and easy nature made it easy for him to make friends with local kids. One Syrian child he met in Egypt continued sending him letters after he left for Europe, and George later sent home photographs of himself with French children he had made friends with in French villages. In February 1916, while he was still in Egypt, Davies had used a personal connection to get himself transferred from the Medical Corps to the 27th Australian Infantry Battalion. He left Egypt with the battalion, arriving in France on the 21st of March 1916. Shortly afterwards, he was promoted to Lance Corporal. Soon after reaching France, the 27th Battalion went into the front line in a quiet sector near Armentières to gain valuable experience of trench warfare conditions. On the night of the 5th of May, Lance Corporal Davies came under fire while with a small scouting party in no man's land. As the men took cover, George heard his lieutenant, John Ross, groaning. He was able to creep over to him and discover that Ross's arm had been shattered. Nearby was Lance Corporal Gilbert Mundy, mortally wounded. Joined by Private Patrick Timmins, Davies worked to retrieve the wounded men from their position, dangerously close to German lines. Davies helped Lieutenant Ross get back to his trenches, while Timmins remained with Mundy, who was struggling and groaning in pain. Davies, having delivered Ross to safety, returned with a stretcher, and he and Timmins set to work to bring in Mundy. At times they could carry him on a stretcher, at other times Davies had to carry him on his back. Although they were ultimately successful, Gilbert Mundy eventually died of his wounds. George Davies and Patrick Timmins were awarded the military medal for their actions on that night. Nearly 2 months later, on the 29th of June 1916, Lance Corporal Davies was once again a member of a party sent into no man's land. This time it was a raiding party, and the battalion later reported that they did some damage, killing 17 enemy and taking 4 prisoners. 4 men were killed in the raid in the early hours of the 29th of June 1916, including Lance Corporal George Davies. His body was recovered from the battlefield, and today he lies in Le Pladeuve Farm Cemetery in Belgium, under the words, "I know that my Redeemer liveth." At a memorial service held at Prince Alfred College a month after George's death, the headmaster said, "Such as he could not resist the country's call, he responded promptly and cheerfully. He gave himself up unreservedly to the demands of service and died nobly. His life value cannot be computed in years. Its true value can be best expressed in lives influenced for good, and in such terms as priceless." George Davies was 20 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial, we now remember Lance Corporal George Campbell Davies, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
I'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.